my name is Crystal Apolosa, and I'll be discussing Little Red Riding Hood, a character analysis of Freud and Jung's psychoanalytic theories. Just a brief description of the story. Little Red Riding Hood is a tale of an innocent young girl who's guided by her mother to go visit her sick grandmother in the next town over. She's told not to stop along the way, but she does become distracted. She runs into a wolf who tells her of a beautiful path of flowers. While she's going down that path, the wolf runs ahead of her to her grandmother's home. He eats her grandmother and then jumps in her bed and waits for Little Red Riding Hood to arrive. Little Red Riding Hood finally does arrive. When she gets there, she's a little bit hesitant to go in, but she decides to go in anyways, and she too is eaten by the wolf. Then both of them are inside the wolf's stomach. A huntsman comes by, sees this, cuts open the wolf, and saves the both of them. And then just to get back at the wolf, they decide to fill him up with stones. When he wakes up, he's so heavily weighted down that he ends up dying. The first theory that we're going to be discussing is Sigmund Freud's theory. Freud believed that our desires, our behaviors, and our unconscious conflicts are sexually driven by three areas of the mind. Each of these areas compete with one another to be the dominant one, and these we go through between infancy through adulthood. The three areas of the mind are the id, the ego, and the superego. The id are our primal desires and basic animalistic nature. The ego is your reason and self-control, and then the superego is our moral compass. This shapes us by our social norms and expectations of what is right and wrong. The second theory we're going to be discussing is Carl Jung's theory. He believed that we're born into the world with a sense of morality already. He did differ from Freud in the sense that our psyches don't compete with one another, but instead they work together to shape our decisions. The three psyches that he analyzes are the ego, the persona, and the shadow. The ego is the most conscious aspect of personality. It's our willpower. The persona is our self-image created by how others view us. And then the shadow is our unacceptable desires and impulses. The three characters we'll be discussing are Little Red Riding Hood herself, the wolf, and the huntsman. The Little Red Riding Hood is how I depicted being the ego. She's an innocent young girl. She's raised by her mother. She has a good understanding of what's right and what's wrong. But it's a very basic understanding at that. She does make a few mistakes along the way. She gives into her temptations. She stops to talk to the wolf, even though her mother instructed her not to do that. She doesn't initially trust her gut feeling when she gets to her grandmother's home. She sees that the door is cracked, but she decides to go in and not trust her initial judgment. And she even climbs in bed with the wolf, who is dressed up as her grandmother. She is eaten by the wolf, but after all this, she learns a lesson learned. She learns not to speak to strangers, to stay along the path, to listen to her mother, and she just learns a hard lesson. The wolf is how I depicted being the id and the shadow. Freud describes the id as an instinctive side that acts on our impulses and our primal needs. It's not guided by the conscious, rather it makes the choices based off what our wants. This is our wolf. He's not concerned about killing the innocent Little Red Riding Hood. He's not concerned about the sick grandmother. Instead, he's only concerned about the hunger that he feels and how he's going to satisfy that. According to Jung, the shadow is the part of our unconscious that represents our undesirable wants. These are the ones that we don't necessarily match up with our moral code, but we decide to go against them anyways. In this story, not only does the wolf devour the two innocent women, he lures them in deceptively. He tells Little Red Riding Hood of this beautiful path she can take instead, and he lures them in with the intention just to feed his evil desires. The huntsman is the last character. He's what I depicted as the superego and the persona. Freud describes our superego as our morals, what we protect ourselves against our impulsive id. This is the role of the huntsman. He finds the grandmother and the Little Red Riding Hood been eaten by the wolf. So he realizes that he has to do something about it. So in order to save the wolf from the evils of the wolf, he cuts open the belly of the wolf to find the grandmother and Little Red Riding Hood still inside. Jung describes our persona as our personal image shaped by the people around us. The huntsman feels it's his job to hunt, provide, and protect. When he finds that the grandmother has been eaten, he feels it's his duty to save the poor women inside, so he cuts the wolf's belly open. And this is just his way of fulfilling his role of provider and protector by saving this old woman and Little Red Riding Hood. And that's my depiction of Little Red Riding Hood based off of Freud and Jung's psychoanalytic theories. I hope you enjoyed it.